Hey, howdy ho, everybody. This is Postmortem Nightshade, and I am so excited to be back here with y'all today discussing movies. For this video, we will be touching on my thoughts on the nominees for this year's Oscar ceremony, while also looking at one movie that wasn't nominated but I thought absolutely could and should have been. There were 10 movies nominated for Best of the Year, which included The Secret Agent, Begonia, Marty Supreme, Frankenstein, Train Dreams, F1, Sinners, Hamnet, One Battle After Another, and Sentimental Value. I already have videos reviewing Marty Supreme, Begonia, and Frankenstein on my channel, so those will not be included in this long-form video. If you are interested to hear my thoughts on those three films, please go check those videos out. I will have them linked below. So, up first on this list, we have The Secret Agent. There were two movies that were nominated this year, with what I would consider to be substantially long runtimes. The Secret Agent was one of those, with a runtime of 2 hours and 40 minutes. With that in mind, I wouldn't say that the pace of this movie was slow, but it was definitely more of a walking speed through the film to get to the end of the story. I do feel like this film had a very clear 3-act execution, with it even being split into chapters on screen to provide distinction throughout for the audience. I would definitely compare this movie, if I was to compare it to anything, to a blossoming flower, where it just slowly reveals its petals to you, one by one, until the whole of the mystery and story is revealed, before heading into the final act to see what becomes of our main protagonist. I thought this was a well-told story, with great moments of character interactions that allows us to understand so much about our characters that we've been growing to love throughout this runtime, without everything necessarily having to be spelled out for us. The costuming was also great, and feels like a true representation of the 70s, rather than the stereotypical version often portrayed in movies. Overall, I thought this was a good film, and I definitely understand its inclusion in the race for Best Picture. On my personal scale, I would give this movie between a hey Heidi okay and a hey Heidi alrighty. And while I enjoyed it, it simply didn't hit as hard for me as other films did, which is the reason for my rating. So, moving on here. One of the movies in the top 10 nominated for the year does not belong with the rest in my opinion. However, I am happy to report that Train Dreams is not that film. The lead of this movie is Joel Edgerton, and while watching the movie, it dawned on me that he plays Tom Buchanan in The Great Gatsby, which is actually one of my favorite and most rewatched films. But, I've said it before and I'll say it again, costuming, especially with hair, does a lot to disguise someone in a movie, and that is true again for this film. This is a movie that allows its audience to take a peek into what I see as a forgotten lifetime. As someone who grew up in an old logging town with a family heritage that comes by the logging trade naturally, this film felt like an opportunity to not only see the life of my ancestors, but to also live in the world they lived in for an hour and 43 minutes. This movie also allows the full appreciation of the absolute natural beauty that is the Pacific Northwest. The cinematography shots in this film could easily have been advertisements for visiting or moving to the area. The deep quietness and introspective nature of the story never feels too slow or boring, which is a very difficult accomplishment. The intimacy that you get with each of the characters allows you to peer into and appreciate the beauty and simplicity that lies in each human's life on Earth. My only criticism is the narration. While it seems to have been a necessary tool to convey more about the story, I'm just never really a huge fan of narrating, but it wasn't unbearable in this film. On my personal scale, I would give this movie a hey Heidi alrighty. I very much enjoyed my time spent watching this movie, and I would highly recommend it to you. Alright, so remember how I just mentioned that I feel one movie does not belong in the race for Best Picture? This next film we'll be discussing is The Elephant in the Room. And, well, I think I'm not alone in my bafflement with the nomination of F1 in the Best Film category. There's actually a film I'll be talking about later that I think should have easily taken its place, but it seems that this movie just must have hit harder with others than it did for me. I thought this was a well-crafted film with more than, suitable performances from all involved. Javier Bardem is actually one of my favorite actors working today, so I obviously enjoyed his role in the film, but overall I just didn't find any element of this movie to have overwhelmed me or to be even particularly memorable. I just did not walk away from the theater being in love with this film. I ranked F1 at number 22 on my 2025 ranking list, so it didn't even crack the top 20 films that I saw last year. I felt that the runtime was a little long, and because of that, the pacing felt slow at times. The story felt like something that has been done in big blockbuster films countless times before, and so I wasn't particularly on the edge of my seat wanting to know what would happen. Like I mentioned, this film was made well, despite its pacing and repeatable story issues, but definitely not one worthy of the top 10 of last year in my opinion. My scale rating for this film would be hey Heidi okay. And that's probably a hot take, but you know what? That's alright. And oh my goodness, where to even begin with our next film? Coming up here, we're talking about Sinners. I've already talked about this film on my own channel and on the Ghastly Ghostbirds channel, so I'll be brief in my thoughts here. I had heard rumors about this movie a few months before it came out. I knew it would have vampires, and I'd seen a small teaser trailer showing off that it would be a period film, but I didn't know what a treat I would be in for. When I went and saw this in theaters, it just blew me away, and it stayed with me the rest of the year. The costuming, character design, writing, world building, score, and villain were just all a phenomenal display of talent. The twins, played by the same actor technology in this film, was some of the best I've ever seen, and I just couldn't believe at times that it was just one person playing the lead role. Additionally, music is something that has taken somewhat of a back seat in the world of cinema, so much so that a memorable score feels kind of like a commodity you see sparsely now. But this film brings music to the forefront and makes it a focal point of the story. The richness of the world and its lore with the vampires, and the film's ability to combine history with memorable characters are just a few reasons why I think this film was so good and actually so popular. On top of that, this film is one I could easily see myself rewatching over and over again, which puts it in a very special catalog of movies in my book. This film sails right to the top of my scoreboard at a hey howdy ho, let's go. Easy to say, I would be absolutely thrilled if Sinners was to win Best Picture this year. Alrighty. And going into the next one, we have Hamnet. So, when I went to watch this film, I kind of had an expectation of how I would be emotionally impacted by it. I was kind of more expecting the level of emotional impact that I got from sentimental value, which was at about a 1.5 to 2 on a scale of 5 of emotionally moving for me. And boy, that was a stupid expectation. I was emotionally gutted watching this film. The performances, especially from lead actress Jessie Buckley, are absolutely deserving of recognition, and the depth of life and the human experience that this movie takes you through truly makes it an emotional roller coaster in every sense of the phrase. From birth through life and then through death, this film explores the emotions we as humans experience through the familial lens of one of history's most remembered artists. The cinematography, color grading, and costuming really help the world feel grounded and familiar to me as an audience member. That's not to say that I myself lived through the 1500s, but rather that this movie captures things about life that I'm intimately familiar with and portray them back to me through the language of film. It didn't feel like a movie, but rather a peek into another time, which I think is a hard thing to accomplish, very similarly to what Train Dreams did. The use of music, or lack thereof, truly allows you to sit with the feelings of the characters, whether it's uplifting you or dragging you through the very pits of emotional hell. For me, this film easily gets a hey Heidi alrighty, almost definitely into a hey Heidi ho let's go category. A tearjerker for sure, so my warning is to be sure to be emotionally and mentally prepared for the journey you will go on watching this film. And I am fully prepared to be told that I am on the wrong side of the road about this next movie. But while I liked one battle after another, I did not love it. So let's just get that out of the way now. I thought Leonardo DiCaprio did a great job in the role, and it was something new that I actually hadn't really seen from him before. Sean Penn is also not an actor I have seen in anything else before this movie, and I thought his villainous role was played to perfection. I also enjoyed how much comedy there was throughout the film, which was a surprise given the more heavy subject matter, and I thought the story was relevant to what is happening now, maybe a little too accurate, I might add, and the dialogue was very engaging. I thought that some of the over-the-top story beats and visuals they used precisely captured how it feels living in the US at this current point in history. But this movie is 2 hours and 42 minutes, and unfortunately for me, it felt that long. Every time I thought we were getting to the end, another 20 minutes would pass, and I realized we still weren't even close to it being over. I think that a half hour could have easily been shaved off the runtime, leaving this still at well over 2 hours. But needless to say, I still thought this was a great movie and is one that I definitely would not be surprised if it took home Best Picture. For me, this film sits at a solid hey Heidi already. And here we go, moving on to the last in the category for Best Picture, we have Sentimental Value. To be brief in my thoughts about this film, I thought that Sentimental Value was a good movie. This also may be a hot take, similar to some of my thoughts concerning One Battle After Another, but I'm not entirely sure why Elle Fanning got a Best Supporting Actress nomination. Not that she isn't great in this movie, she just isn't in it very much, and her character is fine. I just wasn't particularly moved by anything regarding the character she played. Stellan Skarsgård, though, absolutely deserved the Best Actor nomination, and I could see where his children come by their talent. The setting of this film is beautiful, as is the cinematography, and they immaculately captured a very melancholic color palette. On the scoreboard, though, this film barely gets a hey Heidi alrighty for me. On a slight tangent, I think one of the biggest holdups for general audiences when it comes to Oscar pining films is that they are often big, moody dramas with generally a slower pace, so that the focus can be on the performances and or the story. And I think that even people who enjoy these types of films need to be in the mood for them. So, is it right then that the only works that tend to be recognized at the Oscars solely revolve around these sorts of movies? Not sure that I am even close to the person to give thoughts to determine that, but it was just an interesting thought that I had. So let me know what you think of that down in the comments. I'm not saying that these sorts of films shouldn't be recognized, but perhaps a better balance of film type could reinvigorate the award sphere in the eyes of the general public. Now, moving out of the best film category for 2025, there were a few other films that I was interested in checking out, some because they contained best nominated performances, while with others, usually a trailer or marketing captured my attention. And at the end, I'll be discussing the one film that was not nominated that I think absolutely could have been, and it was actually a film I learned about through word of mouth, so made it even better for me. So, moving in here to Blue Moon. This film actually earned Ethan Hawke a nomination in the Best Lead Actor category, and I had actually just seen him recently in Black Phone 2. Black Phone 2 obviously is not an Oscar nominated film, but I thought Ethan Hawke was great in the film, so I was very interested to see the role that got him the nomination. And oh boy, the first 30 minutes were kind of hard for me to get through, I'm not gonna lie. The last 40 minutes or so were definitely my favorite, but this still felt like a very long movie. It is definitely one of those types of films that probably most people think of when you say Oscar film, because it takes place in one location and is solely focused on a slower story with a lot of dialogue, and is definitely honed in on the performances from the actors and actresses involved. The plot feels very minimal, as this is just all about learning who Loren's heart was through his interactions with various characters throughout the course of one evening. Ethan Hawke's performance is definitely great and worth the nomination for sure, but this was not a movie I really enjoyed or would ever rewatch. The scoreboard says this film gets a Hey Heidi okay from me. And in a similar vein to Blue Moon, Rose Byrne was nominated for the lead actress category in If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. And I actually know and love her from Mrs. America. Great limited series, by the way. Check it out. I believe it's on Hulu if you haven't seen it yet. I'd also heard that this movie was exceedingly uncomfortable, but this is an A24 film, so I guess one shouldn't expect anything else at this point. And uncomfortable was a great descriptor, in addition to unbearable, excruciating, and agonizing. Boy, there were a lot of films this year that touched on the theme of motherhood. I would say this movie is favorably comparable to Die My Love, although I will say I much preferred Die My Love over this film. I guess it was a competition this year over who would get the award for playing the most traumatized mom, either Jennifer Lawrence or Rose Byrne. A24 also loves a trippy microscopic scene, which I have now seen in several of their films, and this one is no exception. This was in general a very stressful movie with a couple of moments that made me very queasy. Also, what this movie had the scariest depiction of a hamster ever put to screen, which was just totally caught me off guard, like yikes. But overall, I would rate this film at a Hey Heidi okay. There was a funny review someone I know said about this film, and with their permission, I will read it out to you now. Quote, Die My Love had fire, If I Had Legs I'd Kick You had water, so I can't wait for the earth and air versions of this to unlock the Avatar state, end quote. And moving on here into Arco. Oh my goodness. I freaking loved this movie. I would so highly recommend this film for anyone who misses the comedy they experienced in their youth with movies like the Barbie films that had the stupid henchmen that just add so much to the film and still make you laugh, but they don't take away from the heart and just the magic of the story. The animation in this film is absolutely stunning. The art style seems to be a blend of Miyazaki and traditional French animation. And if you actually liked this movie, or if you get the chance to watch it and you like it, I would highly recommend April in the Extraordinary World. This is another French animated film that I fell in love with when it came out several years ago. It's just unlike anything I've seen, I just really enjoyed it. The world building of Arco is so simple, yet also so well thought out. And the perspective of the story being told through the lens of innocent and hopeful children actually helps paint the future in a less bleak tone, even given all that is happening in the story. At one point in my life, I actually wanted to go to school for animation, and this movie reminded me why. It's using the beauty and uniqueness of the art form of animation to touch people's soul in a way that only animation ever had for me. I got to touch my childhood again for an hour and a half watching this film, and that is an absolutely priceless experience to me. So, from my perspective, this is a perfect film. 10 out of 10, no notes. Obviously, this film gets a Hey Heidi, let's go rating, and easily my favorite movie that I watched for this video. And now we have finally made it to the film that was unfortunately not nominated for any category at the Oscars that I think absolutely could and should have been, which is Lurker. Lurker, in one sentence, is basically Whiplash with a flipped script. Every time that I thought I knew where this movie was going, it would flip things around and surprise me. It had beautiful cinematography, great pacing, plenty of twists, rich characters, and was a really interesting lens on Hollywood and the world of celebrities. The mystery element was great, and I don't want to say too much because I think that you should check this movie out for yourself and make up your own mind about it. But for me, I just really enjoyed this film. It's so simple in its execution, but is a film that I think will stay with me for a really long time. If it's not obvious, for me, this film gets a Hey Heidi already with being a hair's breadth away from moving into the Hey Heidi let's go category. Well, alrighty folks, there you have it. My thoughts on the Oscar nominated films I haven't covered yet, and like I mentioned earlier, if you would like to hear my thoughts on Marty Supreme, Begonia, and Frankenstein, then please check out those videos on my channel. But let me know your thoughts about these movies in the comments. Are there any I mentioned that you're now interested in checking out? Thank you everyone so much for tuning in, and if you'd like to follow along on my movie review journey, please like, subscribe, and follow, and I will see y'all very soon.